I have Vanessa Van Edwards on, and she is amazing. She talks about studying body language, and you're probably going to be saying to me, what the frick are you doing now, Stan? Well, just hold up for a minute. Body language is one of the key elements that gives away a customer's intentions. So when you go out and you meet a customer and you give them a proposal, if you can understand the little intricacies, the little tiny things they're doing and what they mean, it gives you an inside track. I can't tell you how many times I've gone out to a customer's house, and because I take the time to understand and try to develop a deeper knowledge of body language, I've known when my proposals are dead on, when I've walked away knowing that this customer is going to sign on the dotted line, and other times before I've given them a number, I know that I need to change something if I'm going to connect with that customer. That's what she comes on and talks about today. She runs this program called The Science of People, and the Science of People website impressed the hell out of me. I mean, you go to her YouTube channel and everything you need to know to get a basic understanding is right there, available for you to click on a video and download. It took me forever to get her to come on the show, so we packed a ton of information into a very short time. I want you guys to pull everything out of this you possibly can, then go check out her website and continue to develop your skills. Continue to develop that knowledge, because that is going to be almost like the cheat sheet that gets you more jobs. That's why I pursued it. That's why I study it. I heard her on other podcasts, and when I brought her on, she was, like I said, absolutely amazing. So get ready. I think you're going to love this show. Check it out. Let me know what your thoughts are. Send me an email. Shoot me an email just saying, hey, what's up? I love talking to you guys. You guys, you're my fans. I'm your fan. I love interacting with you guys. So hit me up. Check this podcast out. Let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you pull as much out of it as I did by doing it. So sit back, strap in, and get ready, because here we go. Yeah, hello everyone. This is Stan Genetic, and I have Vanessa Van Edwards on the line. Now, she is an amazing entrepreneur, business leader, but more importantly, she runs the School for the Science of People. That's where I discovered her. She has a ton of absolutely top-notch videos. And before we get too much into it, Vanessa, I just want to make sure you can hear me okay. Do we have a good connection?
Yeah, you're far too kind in your intro, Stan.
Thank you. So, Vanessa, I've actually listened to you on Jordan Harbinger's The Art of Charm, and I was immediately taken aback by just how advanced your body language reading courses were. I went online and I typed in the YouTube videos, and I was blown away. You have over 100 videos, I believe, and there's nothing hidden there. You give it all away. You teach entrepreneurs, landscapers, contractors exactly the things that they need to take their business to the next level. And what I want to talk to you about today, Vanessa, is when a contractor, an entrepreneur, I don't care who you are, any tradesman is going up and making that initial meeting with the customer, they need to learn how their body language affects the outcome of the interaction. And they also need to understand the subtle cues that the customer gives them that lets them know if the customer is picking up what they're putting down, if the customer is buying into what they're trying to sell, or if the customers completely shut themselves off. Can we go into that in more detail?
Yeah, sure. So I think that there's a big myth, and it really disrupts our business as entrepreneurs, where we focus all of our energy on selling ourselves, on what we're going to say, right? We prep for a client meeting, or we prepare a portfolio, or we have pictures for them, or we think about what we want to say on our website, on our about page, or on our bio. The problem is when you first meet someone, it doesn't really matter what you say. It matters how you say it. And that is, the research has found that when you first meet someone, in 1/10 of a second, we decide if we trust someone, if we like someone and if we're going to buy from them.
So, Vanessa, to build off from what you just said, there was a study done, and I'm just going by sheer memory, where a group of 6 men and 6 women had to listen to 65 doctors, I believe it was, and to tell which ones were sued for malpractice. Okay?
Yes.
And out of that study, they had a 90% accuracy rate, but it gets more interesting. They were not allowed to hear the words that the doctors were speaking to the clients. All they were able to hear was the tone of their voice, and the actual words were muffled. And I think it was limited to 10-second clips. And they had a 90% accuracy rate to determine who was sued for malpractice and who wasn't. So that's how impactful your statement is.
Yeah, and I love that study. And that's one of many, many studies that show that the doctors, you should look at malpractice rates based on doctors' performance, right? You would think the more skilled the doctor is, the less he would get sued. And the least skilled he is, the more he would get sued, the more mistakes he would make. Not true at all. The doctors that got sued for malpractice had nothing to do with their skill level. All it had to do with was how charismatic they sounded in their voice. Not what they said, how they said it.
The person felt like the doctor cared about them. Really, that's what it boils down to.
Yes, exactly. And so let's break down charisma a little bit. You know, Stan, that I love the science. Everything we do at Sense Evil is research backed. I actually run a lab. So we take all this research that's out of academic institutions and we try to make it applicable, because they have these studies that are 20 pages long and like absolutely you're unable to understand them. So I'm like, where are the nuggets that we can actually use? And what we found is that there is research on charisma. You do not have to be born with it. You can learn charisma. And there are 2 specific facets that make up charisma, specifically warmth and competence. Now, when people think of charisma, they often can't put their finger on it. They're like, I don't know, that person just has that thing. They have that quality that's just really memorable. What they're talking about is the perfect blend of warmth and charisma. Warmth is how relatable you are, how engaging you are, how much you show you care. But competence is just as important. For charisma, you have to be competent. That's credible. That's dependable. That's loyal. So having those 2 things, if you're just warm, you're a pushover. You're nice, but you're a pushover. If you're just competent, you're intimidating. You're smart, but you're intimidating. So we want to have both. And that is what you should be focusing on when you're calling people, when you're first meeting with people, when you're networking, when you're pitching, when you're negotiating.
So cocky does not relate to confidence or competence.
No, it does not. Correct.
We've got to make that distinction, because the last thing you want to do is come off as arrogant. A know-it-all doesn't come off as a good impression. So you gotta have that perfect blend. So let's take it a step further and let's kind of go into some of the body cues that contractors should be looking at, the nonverbal cues that they should train themselves so that when they go into a meeting, they stop thinking about them and they just automatically kind of pick them up and start going with them. Mm-hmm. Is there anything in specific that you can give us? Any words of wisdom?
Yes, definitely. So there are about 10 different warmth cues, and I'll go over some of my favorites. It's on a podcast, we only can do so much because you can't see my face or body, but we can definitely do some that you can apply right away. Like today, I want you to, right after this podcast, go try it with someone. So the first one is something that's called fronting. So fronting is a nonverbal engagement cue, and it's basically how you show someone nonverbal respect. And it's aiming your toes, your torso, and your head towards the person you're speaking with. Now, people are always like, okay, like that makes sense. But in over 90% of interactions, people point their toes outwards. So they actually have like a 90-degree angle where they point their toes out. That is a nonverbal sign of disengagement. That's basically saying to someone when you're meeting with them, especially if you're standing on the street with them, or you just walked into their office, or you walked into their house, you shook their hand, and you have your toes pointed out, which we think looks casual. But actually what you're saying to them is, I'm not fully here, I'm not fully present, and you can't fully depend on me. So that is a super easy thing that when you're talking to someone, when you're standing and talking to them especially, but even sitting, is to aim your entire body towards them, because that underlies your conversation with full engagement. It's so easy, but we just forget. We forget to aim our toes and torso towards that person.
So I have a question for you regarding that. I first off, I want to say thank you for bringing that up. I have looked so many times online trying to figure that very specific point out, where if you're talking to someone, I've always made a conscious effort to aim my torso at them. And what I found is that 9 times out of 10, they aim away. The more you aim toward them, the more they'll aim away. And is that because they feel like you're too confrontational, or they're disengaging from what you're trying to say to them?
It might actually be a space issue. So usually engaging with someone by aiming your body towards them by fronting is not a confrontation cue. But what is a confrontation cue is proxemics. Proxemics is like the scientific word for space between people. And so if you're fronting with someone, but you're also leaning in towards them and or you've taken a step too close, that is confrontational. So make sure that when you're fronting, if you think that they have just turned their feet out, or they've crossed their arms suddenly over their chest, or they're leaning back, you're probably just in their intimate zone. So everyone has intimate zone, social zone, and personal zone.
So let's talk about pecking order too, as you get into that, Vanessa. Not only do we have the space constraints, but then is there kind of a natural pecking order that leaders establish and followers naturally assume? Because I've also noticed that when you front someone, if they turn to the side of you, sometimes they will actually go so far as to step behind you, where it almost feels like you're talking over your shoulder, trying to engage them.
Yes, definitely. It's a leadership cue, but it can also be a processing thing. So if you're explaining something to someone and they're trying to figure you out, they're trying to figure out, do I believe this person? What is he or she talking about? They will sometimes take a step back. It's a distancing behavior to try to give themselves space. So there was a study that showed that when people take a physical step back, it helps them assess the situation better. It's like, giving yourself some space to figure it out. So it could be a leadership cue, but it also could be that someone's just trying to figure out what you're saying and if they trust you.
We've talked about fronting. You said you had 10 steps?
Yes, there are 10 different steps. And also, by the way, I have 7 of them that are the verbal ones up for free on my website. I give everything away if I can. So you're welcome to get those. They're 7 steps to influence, and they're all free on my website. So 7 of them are on there. Fronting is one of them. Let's see, what else could we do easily on a podcast? One of the things that bothers me a little bit about some of the body language myths that are out there is when you say to people, I teach body language. They say, oh yeah, good posture, good eye contact, good handshake. Those 3 things are great. It's a great place to start with those, but it's such a small part of the story. In fact, eye contact can be a confrontation cue if used incorrectly. So many people, they've been told, make really strong eye contact when you're pitching a client, really make that good eye contact when you're meeting someone for the first time. But the problem is that in an average conversation, normal eye contact is 60 to 70% of the time. So if you are engaging in more than 70% eye contact, you are seen as creepy. You are seen as aggressive. So you might be over eye contacting with someone, which is going to cause them to do exactly what you just said, Stan, which is to disengage, which is to step back, turn away, pull back, turn their toes out, because what you're doing subconsciously without realizing it is actually threatening to them. So
I'm going to build on what you just said, Vanessa, and then you'll correct me because you're the expert and I'm a landscaper. So a good way to rate how effective your eye contact is to look at them just long enough to notice the color of their eyes and then glance away.
Perfect. And that's why it's actually wonderful if you can meet someone outside, because what you're doing is making eye contact and then gesturing out, making eye contact and then gesturing out. So yes, you meet them, you notice their eye color, and then you start talking about your surroundings. It's actually so much easier to do that than in like a stuffy cubicle office, because there's very few places that you can look. So it's wonderful if you could build into your pitch, into that first meeting where you're gesturing to things, or you're showing them pictures, you're showing them a pitch, you're showing them a proposal. That is a wonderful way to have really direct eye contact and then looking at something else, right? That 60 to 70%, it stays really strong. That's that sweet spot.
So what about the soft touch on the shoulder or elbow? Is that still kind of the okay thing to do, or is that invading a person's space?
I would not say the shoulder. And the reason for that is because if you think about your body, there's actually like a touch map on top of the body. And the touch map the guidelines are that the further up the arm you go towards the torso and the head, the more intimate the touch becomes. So the hand, the forearm is the safest space for touch. The upper arm, the shoulder, the back, never the head, never the torso.
You don't pat him on the head, Vanessa?
No, yeah, you don't pat him on the head.
Good boy.
Yeah, even a slap on the back is a little bit more intimate unless you're really close with someone. So all of those are not as safe. Handshake, forearm touch is very powerful. So first of all, always handshake. And luckily we know this. Thank goodness society knows this one about body language. And the reason for that is because when you touch someone palm to palm, oxytocin is released in the brain. And oxytocin is nicknamed the cuddle hormone. It's basically the hormone that comes out when we touch someone, when we cuddle with someone. It's the chemical explanation for bonding. It is literally how we feel. It's a chemical that comes out when we feel connected to someone. So when you meet someone, every single time you see them, at the beginning and at the end, always take that time to walk across and give them a nice hearty handshake, because it's going to build that oxytocin. And they say a handshake is worth about 3 hours, 2.7 hours of face-to-face talking time. So it's a huge bonding opportunity. And you can also do, as you mentioned, that soft touch. I would not recommend the shoulder. I would recommend either the hand or the lower arm. Study after study proves this is the case. And this is for both men and women. So waiters and waitresses who slightly touch someone's forearm or hand when they leave the bill get a 41% increase in tips.
So I heard another study that says if a waitress drops off a piece of candy and then walks away and then makes an intentional effort to turn back around and drop off a second piece of candy to that table, they can experience up to, like a 23% increase in their tips. Is that something you've heard too, Vanessa?
I haven't read that study, but so we do a book club in our website, and we're reading Influence right now by Robert Cialdini, and he says that reciprocity is one of the factors of influence. I think he has 8 factors of influence, and reciprocity is one of them. And he talks about that candy, giving someone a piece of candy as you're leaving as a waiter or waitress is enabling the reciprocity effect, which basically says that when you give someone something, they cannot help but feel more indebted to you, and so they end up giving you more of a tip, they give you a smile, they refer you, they write a review. It's like you've engaged in a basic tenet of human behavior, which is I give, you give.
So your book club is reading a Robert Cialdini book. You're not part of the Oprah book club then.
I know. No, we have a fun, like it's a free kind of whoever wants to read with us. And then we all have like a big party hangout session where we talk about the books. Basically my New Year's resolution this year was to read more. And so I decided to set up a Science People book club. And so our book this month is Influence. So we talk about the principles of influence, and we talk about stories and how we use it in our businesses. And then we just selected our book for next month, which is The Honest Truth About Dishonesty. So that's by Dan Ariely. And I do a lot of human lie detection. This is a book about lie detection, about what do we lie about? Why do we lie? How do you know if someone's lying? So that's our book for February. I would love if anyone wants to join.
Oh, wow. That sounds like an interesting book. I'm reading the latest one right now by Carol Kinsey Goldman. The Truth About Liars in the Workplace, I think is what it is.
Yeah, it's a good book. Yeah, that's a good book.
So we've covered 3. So far, we've talked about facing a person, the eye contact, and then the soft touch, which I brought up. I don't know if that's on part of your list, is it? Or
touch is an optional one. So there's a couple that I have that are like only if you're okay with it. They're kind of advanced techniques. I personally consider touch an advanced technique. And the reason for that is because if you're not comfortable with touch, I would never recommend it to you. Like, right. If I always want you to be authentic in your interactions. And if you don't like being touched, I would never want you to try to touch someone else, because that would be extremely inauthentic. It's also, you have to do it right. If it doesn't feel natural to you, if you're not a very touchy person, when you reach out and touch someone, they're going to feel that awkwardness. It is palpable. Oh, yeah. So I consider touch like sort of an advanced optional one. Like another advanced optional one that I talk about is mirroring. So people have said to me, should I mirror the person I'm talking with? In other words, when I'm talking with someone, should I try to copy their voice? Should I try to copy their body language? And that's an advanced technique. And the reason why that works is because there is a set of studies on mimicry, which says that when we really like someone, we automatically, without even thinking about it, copy them. What they did is they brought best friends into the lab and they observed them. They videotaped them. They took all their ratings, their heart rate, their breath, everything. And they found, this is really cute, the longer the friends had been together, the closer they were, the more they copied each other without realizing it. Down to their blink rate, down to their breathing rate, their perspiration rate. They were blinking at the same pace as their best friend. And of course, they don't realize it. It's extremely, you can't really control your blink rate. And so what they found was, as the closer you are with someone, the more you mirror them. So some people use this, as I call it, a nasty influence strategy. I think that it's not good to try to manipulate someone. There's a very, very fine line between manipulation and influence. And so mirroring, I don't like the idea of purposely trying to copy someone. However, I do like the idea of getting on the same page as someone else. So for example, I was pitching a potential client in the South. And I don't know if you noticed, but I speak kind of fast. And so we had the exact opposite speaking pace, where I was speaking rapidly and he was speaking in a nice Southern drawl, kind of like this. And I realized that we were just like on totally different pages. I mean, we were the opposite of mirroring. And so I didn't mimic his Southern accent, but I slowed down my speaking pace so that I was just breathing more. I was pausing more between my thoughts. I was making sure that I was more thoughtful with the words that I was using.
You can use the mirror neurons as an indicator of how well you're being accepted by the people you're talking with too, right? You can see
yes.
So you can use that as a judge. If people begin to mirror you, so I was speaking to a group of people, Vanessa, and I intentionally said, I'm going to see how receptive they are to my message. So I put my hands down by my sides and I watched everybody put their hands on. Then I folded my hands in front of me, gently one over another, and everybody did that. And then I lifted my hands to my mouth as if I was in deep thought while I was speaking and watched. And I'm like, okay, I think they're all on the same page.
Yes, it's a great way to see how much influence you have. I mean, palpably in a room, right? You can see how much influence you have by very quickly seeing if someone copies or mirrors your posture. Another way that you can do that is, especially if you're standing, is you can plant yourself. So like I will often at networking events or at client meetings, I will go to like a cocktail table and I will plant. In other words, like I will just put my drink down, put my purse down and not move. And I will see how close people come to me. So for example, if someone walks up to me, I let them decide if they want to come in my personal zone, my social zone, or my intimate zone. So another way that you can gauge how someone feels about you is how they use proxemics, how they use the space between you.
Wow, that's kind of brave. That's a great way to invite people in without feeling too confrontational.
Exactly. And also, I sometimes we don't know or understand people's need for space. Like it's hard to gauge if you're too close or too far away. So if you think that you have that problem, if you're like, gosh, I notice people are always walking towards me. I'm always taking a step back, or I notice that people are always leaning back or disengaging from me. It might be that you have a space issue. And so planting is a way to gauge, okay, how close am I? Would I have gone closer to them? Would I have gone farther away from them? It's a way to gauge your internal space zones because everyone's is slightly different. That's one of the few body language cues that's actually cultural and environmental. So most body language is genetic and it's universal. It's across cultures. So it doesn't matter if you're speaking Spanish, English, Czech, it doesn't matter. Body language is universal except for space. Space and touch are two of the areas in body language where it can differ from culture to culture.
One of the things that I have learned about body language is a lot of the things that we've talked about, the subtle cues, can be picked up on by other people, but there is a cue that if you're going into an interaction with a customer and you really want to know deep down what they feel that they cannot hide, and that's their eye dilation. So what I'm talking about is the pupils. Let's say that as a contractor, landscaper, entrepreneur, you're about to give a customer a number for a project that they want. You're about to give them an estimate, and when you give them that number, you look in their eyes, and you try not to be creepy, of course, but you look in their eyes and you look specifically at the pupils. And what you'll find is if the pupils dilate, they get real big like saucer pans, and they open wide up. And correct me if I'm wrong, that means that the person is receptive to what you're saying. But if as soon as you give that number, the pupils constrict, that means you're out of the ballpark. Pretty much the dilation in the eyes is an indicator of whether you're in like Flynn or you're out the door.
So you are right. You are absolutely right about this. Pupil dilation happens when we're receptive and or turned on. Okay, it happens with both. That's one of the reasons.
So this helps with dating.
Oh yeah, I mean, in my dating course, we do talk about this because, and even by the way, in advertisements, you'll notice they almost always enlarge the pupils of the woman in the advertisement because it makes her look turned on. Subconsciously, we know this as humans, which is more enticing to males especially. So you'll notice that if you look at eyes in advertisements, you'll notice they do that. However, I will say that I have tried to integrate pupil dilation or pupil assessment into my body language reading. And I find it incredibly difficult. Maybe I'm slower than you, Stan, to be able to have a conversation with someone and pay attention to their pupils. I just cannot manage it. I cannot manage doing both. So one way that I have found that's a little bit easier, if that seems hard, I would definitely try it, is I focus on the micro expressions. So a micro expression is a very brief, involuntary facial expression we make when we feel an emotion. And I think that for negotiation, especially, noticing their immediate, very quick facial expression and knowing exactly how to read it is going to tell you far more about your number and if it was too high or too low than pupils, especially if you're a little bit further away and you can't see. So micro expressions, I think, are a really big one.
So is the fact that when you look at a person smile and the smile has to go up to their eyes, hit the crow's feet in their eyes, and those have to activate, is that considered a micro expression?
Yeah, that's considered the happiness micro expression. I think that when we're talking about price negotiation, the one that you're looking out for, there's a couple others you're looking out for. I actually have a free tutorial on micro expressions on my website. It's scienceofpeople.com/face. So if you want to open that up, you're welcome to check it out. But I think the three that come up the most during price negotiations is very rarely happiness, because unless you've really lowballed them, they're probably not going to smile at you, like beam a smile at you after you give them a price, because they're still paying. So you really don't often see the happiness micro expression in negotiations. What you do end up seeing is surprise, you see fear, and you see contempt. Occasionally you see anger. And so being able to recognize the difference between surprise and fear, that like is going to give you a very different thing. So if someone shows you fear during when you say your price, you know that it's less about negotiating for the art of negotiating, right? And it's more about, I don't think I'm gonna be able to pay this, right?
Yep.
I don't think I'm gonna be able to pay this. And that's a very different conversation. Then it's like, okay, like how about a payment plan? Or, how can we try to work with you? So, cause they're afraid as opposed to angry. If they're angry, that's a very different thing. You want to go into reassurance and explanation mode, because they're like, this person is trying to pull one over on me. And you want to immediately reassure them that no, let me explain exactly what goes into that price. I didn't just make it up, right? So they're very different reactions that you have depending on those facial expressions.
So Vanessa, it's pretty obvious. We could go on about this for hours, and I know you don't have that kind of time, but you have a course specifically for entrepreneurs.
I do.
Before we go, can you tell us about that? Because there's so much stuff that is just an amazing amount of information that you offer, and I really want this audience to know, because it'll change the way you run your business. So please tell us about it.
I mean, if anything that we've talked about today sort of intrigued you or you think could help your business, I welcome you to check out, we have a body language for entrepreneurs course. So it's scienceofpeople.com/entrepreneur. And anyone who's listening gets 50% off for listening to Stan's podcast. So just enter the coupon podcast when you check out. And basically what we do is we cover every aspect of being of an entrepreneur, but from a body language perspective. So from networking to your elevator pitch, to sales, to your first client meeting, to price negotiation, to hiring, to interviewing, to lie detection. It's all of those things that you encounter as an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, I mean, I feel like I wear 1,000 different hats. I'm HR, I'm leadership, I'm the workhorse, I'm the secretary, so it's all the things that you need as that. And it's a 4-hour online course. You take it whenever you want. All you need is internet connection.
Vanessa, thank you so much. And everybody listening out there, you got to just go check out the scienceofpeople.com, because there's just a ton of videos on YouTube. That'll get you started, and then you can dive deeper and find specific training, whether it's for entrepreneurship. Sounds like you offer dating courses. I'm sure there's other stuff you offer too, Vanessa.
All kinds of goodies. And we have tons of free courses. We have our 7 scientifically proven steps to increase your influence. It's free. It's just fun. So you can get that just by signing up on the website. So I have a ton of free stuff as well. I want to share this science because it's personally changed my life. I'm a recovering awkward person. So the more I can help other people, the better.
Oh, I love that. A recovering awkward person. That is perfectly describes me. Vanessa, thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Remember, for all the valuable links we talk about in this episode, be sure to go to the landscapebusinesspro.com. We're going to have them all listed there for you. And like always, I love hearing from you guys. So if you have any questions or show feedback, shoot me an email. Reach out to me at stan@landscapebusinesspro.com. It makes my day when I hear from you guys. So don't be shy. Send me an email. I'd love to hear from you and get your feedback. DirtMonkey.net is a website built for landscapers and excavators and anyone that moves dirt. Our interactive map of job sites, demolition landfills, and aggregate pits connects contractors that have excess fill with those that need it. I use it and I helped create it, so I made sure it was built with guys like us in mind. Our members enjoy no brokerage fees, no hidden fees, and no BS. Go to dirtmonkey.net, where we are offering a completely free trial with no credit card necessary. Or if you just want to check out the live map, you can gain instant access to our nationwide listing of landfills and aggregate pits. It's absolutely free to everyone. So go check it out now at dirtmonkey.net.